The crowd roars as a young boxer dances around the ring, his footwork mesmerizing, his jabs lightning fast. The year is 1964, and Cassius Clay has just shocked the world by defeating Sonny Liston for the heavyweight championship. But what the world doesn't yet fully understand is that this victory represents only the beginning of a much more profound journey. One that would transform not just a fighter's name, but his soul, his purpose, and ultimately, his legacy. The modest childhood home of the man who would become known as Muhammad Ali still stands in Louisville, Kentucky. From these humble beginnings emerged a figure whose impact transcended sports. The question at the heart of Ali's story isn't about boxing records or Olympic medals. It's about faith. How did a young black kid from segregated America find spiritual liberation in Islam, and how did that choice shape everything that followed? As we travel the spiritual path of Muhammad Ali, we'll discover that his greatest fight wasn't against Frazier, Foreman, or even Parkinson's disease. It was the struggle to remain true to his convictions when the entire world seemed aligned against him. The story begins in this segregated neighborhood of Louisville, where young Cassius Clay grew up attending church with his mother, Odessa. The Christianity of his childhood provided comfort and community, but as the young fighter's star began to rise, questions about identity, race, and purpose began to surface in his mind. By the early 1960s, as Clay dominated the boxing world with his unmatched speed and skill, he was secretly attending meetings of the Nation of Islam, a black nationalist religious movement that preached self-determination and separation from white society. Malcolm X became his spiritual mentor, guiding the young champion toward a new understanding of himself and his place in American society. But it wasn't until after claiming the heavyweight title that Clay made the announcement that would forever change his life and legacy. "I believe in Allah and in peace," he told shocked reporters the morning after his victory over Liston. "I don't try to move into white neighborhoods. I don't want to marry a white woman. I was baptized when I was 12, but I didn't know what I was doing. I'm not a Christian anymore. I know where I'm going and I know the truth, and I don't have to be what you want me to be. I'm free to be what I want to be." With those words, Cassius Clay became Muhammad Ali, a name given to him by Nation of Islam leader Elijah Muhammad. The name change wasn't merely symbolic. It represented a complete rebirth, a shedding of what Ali called his slave name in favor of one that connected him to his true heritage and faith. At this point, we discover that Ali's spiritual journey was only beginning, and his newfound faith would soon be tested in ways he couldn't have imagined. If you're enjoying this journey so far, don't forget to like and share this video. Your support helps us share these incredible stories with a global audience. Now back to the show. In 1966, as the Vietnam War intensified, Ali received his draft notice. His response, informed directly by his religious beliefs, would cost him everything he had worked for. "Why should they ask me to put on a uniform and go 10,000 miles from home and drop bombs and bullets on brown people in Vietnam, while so-called Negro people in Louisville are treated like dogs?" he famously stated. "If I thought the war was going to bring freedom and equality to 22 million of my people, they wouldn't have to draft me. I'd join tomorrow." Standing firm in his Islamic faith's opposition to the war, Ali refused induction into the armed forces. The reaction was swift and severe. He was stripped of his boxing titles, banned from the sport, convicted of draft evasion, sentenced to 5 years in prison, and fined $10,000. Overnight, the beloved champion became one of the most hated men in America. The historic Muhammad Ali Mosque in Chicago became a sanctuary for Ali during this difficult period. His faith sustained him through these darkest hours. While appealing his conviction, unable to fight and watching his prime years slip away, Ali supported himself by speaking at colleges about his faith and his opposition to the war. Many of these appearances were hostile, yet Ali never wavered. What's extraordinary is how Ali's understanding of Islam continued to evolve during this period of exile. When Malcolm X broke from the Nation of Islam over doctrinal differences and embraced mainstream Sunni Islam, Ali initially rejected his mentor. It was a decision he would later deeply regret after Malcolm's assassination. The turning point in Ali's spiritual journey came in 1972, when, after the Supreme Court overturned his conviction and he returned to boxing, he made his first pilgrimage to Mecca to perform Hajj. The footage of this moment is breathtaking. Ali in simple white garments, circling the Kaaba alongside Muslims of every race and nationality. That experience transformed Ali's understanding of Islam. "I have had many nice moments in my life," Ali wrote afterward. "But the feelings I had while standing on Mount Arafat on the day of Hajj was the most unique. I felt exalted by the indescribable spiritual atmosphere there, as over 1 million pilgrims invoked God to forgive them of their sins and bestow on them His choicest blessings." That experience transformed Ali's understanding of Islam. Upon his return, he gradually distanced himself from the Nation of Islam and embraced Sunni Islam. By 1975, as Ali prepared for his legendary Thrilla in Manila fight against Joe Frazier, his faith had become less political and more personal, less about separation and more about universal brotherhood. In Manila, local Muslims share stories of how Ali visited local mosques between training sessions for the legendary Thrilla in Manila fight against Joe Frazier. There's a small, unassuming mosque near the Araneta Coliseum where they say Ali prayed before the brutal fight, perhaps finding in those quiet moments the spiritual strength that would carry him through one of boxing's most punishing contests. The climax of Ali's spiritual journey, however, came not in victory but in defeat. Not in the ring, but in his own body. In 1984, 3 years after retiring from boxing, Ali was diagnosed with Parkinson's disease. The man once celebrated for his speed, agility, and gift of gab now faced a condition that would gradually rob him of all three. Yet those closest to Ali describe this period as one of profound spiritual growth. His daughter Hannah recalls finding her father alone in prayer at 3 a.m., tears streaming down his face as he communed with Allah, despite his increasingly limited physical abilities. The disease that slowed his body seemed to deepen his spiritual connection. "God gave me this illness to remind me that I'm not number one, He is," Ali once said. In his final decades, Ali's understanding of Islam evolved once more. He embraced Sufism, a mystical dimension of Islam focused on direct personal experience of God. He studied under Hazrat Inayat Khan, whose teachings emphasized universal harmony and spiritual liberty. Through this lens, Ali found the capacity to transcend the divisions and animosities of his earlier years. This spiritual evolution became most visible after the September 11th attacks, when Ali, despite his deteriorating health, made one of his most important statements. "Islam is a religion of peace. It does not promote terrorism or killing people. I am angry that the world sees a certain group of Islam followers who caused this destruction, but they are not real Muslims." At a time when many Americans viewed Islam with suspicion and fear, Ali became a powerful ambassador for the faith's true peaceful nature. The fighter had become a peacemaker. The provocateur had become a unifier. Want to dive deeper into this story? Check out our blog article, link in the description, for further details of this story. Ali's final resting place in Louisville's Cave Hill Cemetery features a simple but elegant stone marked with Quranic inscriptions. Visitors of all faiths come to pay respects. Some leave small stones, others whisper prayers. All seem touched by the presence of a man whose spiritual journey transcended boxing, politics, and even religion itself. As the sun sets over Louisville, casting long shadows across Ali's grave, his spiritual legacy is captured in something he once said. "Rivers, ponds, lakes, and streams, they all have different names, but they all contain water. Just as religions do, they all contain truths." The journey doesn't end here. Subscribe now and be part of our next great adventure. For more breathtaking travel stories and captivating animations, explore our other videos on the right. Thanks for watching, and see you soon.